Welcome back, True Seeker. The last few days has been a classic example of why so many people think the teeny tiny hats control the world. And if you haven't been paying attention, I was going to say, Israel. Israel has been bombing away. It hasn't really been covered much in the U.S. media, but if you follow sites like Al Jazeera and other international news, they've been showing the death tolls daily. There's been some massive death tolls, and meanwhile, while you're not hearing about any of that, you're hearing about two Jewish people who were killed outside of a Jewish museum on May 21st, and all the coverage of that, and the killer from Chicago. And of course, I covered what was very interesting about that story a week after Israel's 77th birthday. If you followed my website, Gematria Effect News, I had this posted earlier in that day before the story broke about the two Israelis killed. This was the international news coverage that day. Israeli army will control all of Gaza, and that was a Netanyahu statement. Of course, the leader of Israel, on top of 82 people killed that day, and several of them children. So, again, you didn't see that covered at all the day that the news broke about the two Israeli embassy staffers being killed outside the museum. That took over the headlines starting that night, and it's carried through the news up through the present. Huge focus in the media, where day after day, these massive death tolls get no attention. And the thing is, when Israel was created, it was said that they would not impose themselves on the surrounding communities, which they've done ever since they got there. Again, it is this type of thing that makes people think, again, it's Israel, or again, all the different aliases for them, that they run the world. But again, you have to look at who's really controlling the show, who's really been there from the beginning, creating Israel by a very ritualistic code that pays tribute to the Catholic Old Testament. Again, there's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament. That's why Israel was created on 14/5, not to mention in Gematria, Catholic equals 145. But yeah, again, this kind of coverage, it is also the way the programming works. And in the United States of America, especially in the 21st century, it started well before the 21st century, but essentially, or especially from September 11th, 2001 onward, Jewish life has had a premium put on it by the media, meaning it's special and very important. And Muslim life, not so much. A lot of programming that it's a religion full of radicals and bad people and people who want to kill Westerners and Christians and infidels. And there's almost nobody like that within the Muslim faith that really has those viewpoints. Most Muslim people are like any other people. They care about their family. They want to do better in life. Again, there's a lot of communities in the U.S. that are full of Muslim refugees. These people aren't doing any harm to other people in their community. They're not wishing any harm. They're interacting. They're getting along. But there's this game played in the media where Muslim life, not that important. Jewish life, super important. And social media platforms, you can't really say anything about the one certain group of people, but you could go on all day, go on a rant about, I could go on a rant about how if I was programmed by media about how Islam is this horrible thing. In fact, I'll play a YouTuber who gets crazy views, who does just that on his channel regularly. He gets 1 million views, and he's a 30-some-year-old person who grew up in the post 9/11 era, and his mind has been shaped by the lies on TV, and now he goes out and spews those lies onto social media, and he's rewarded for it. He's paid very handsomely, getting about 1 million views per video. Again, if you did that about the small hats, you wouldn't have a channel at all. You surely wouldn't get a million views. You'd probably get a fines. In some countries, you might end up in jail. But again, what I want people to think about is, what is the group that's really behind this dynamic where one group is protected and the other one, they're kind of like fair game? Could it be the same religion that waged crusades against this same religion for a long time? When you think about the Crusades, again, it is true the Catholics targeted a lot of people, but it was mostly targeted at one group, Islamic people. And again, when 9/11 happened, you had George W. Bush in there, Bush Jr., and he referred to going into the Middle East as a crusade. That was his own terminology. And again, he was in Skull and Bones, and Skull and Bones gets their symbolism from how the Templars bury their dead, and the Templars waged the crusades, and the word Templar equals 85, kind of like how we invaded Afghanistan on October 7th, the day leaving 85 days left in the year, just like how the war in Israel began on the day leaving 85 days left in the year, that same October 7th day. But yeah, again, a lot of people just allow the media to do all of their thinking for them, to shape all the thoughts in their mind. And if you're one of those people, you really need to snap out of it. The media does not have your interests at heart. It has agendas at heart that it wants you to get behind and become a part of. And you should ask yourself, why is there no coverage of Netanyahu saying that the military is going to fully take over Gaza? Why was there was literally no coverage of that in any of the major news networks in the U.S. that day. But what did break that same night was this. And it almost feels like it's a smokescreen, doesn't it? In case anybody might pick up on that story. If somehow that slipped through the cracks, somebody might have heard that Netanyahu said the Israeli military is going to occupy all of Gaza. Sounds a lot like Small Mustache Man stuff. Can't say Ashkenazi without Nazi. But instead of even having a chance to even talk about that story, all of a sudden it's this: oh my God, did you hear some pro-Palestinian guy killed 2 Israeli embassy staffers outside the Jewish museum? And remember, if you missed my coverage of this, I talked about how it happened 1 week after the 77th birthday of Israel. And the name of this museum, if you look it up, where the couple was supposedly killed who were about to be engaged, this nice emotional element to the story. The name of the museum is also Woman and Man, Lillian and Albert Small. Lillian Albert Small, Capital Jewish Museum. But the names of those people is 77. And this happened on the 141st day of the year. It took over the news on the 142nd day. The full name of that museum, Lillian Albert Small Capital Jewish Museum, is 142. Pam Bondi became the spokesperson initially. They put out the name of the killer, Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. Chicago keeps coming up. The new pope, born in Chicago. We've been talking about Chicago an awful lot ever since Trump got his 312 electoral college votes. 312. And again, Kamala had the DNC in Chicago. And the day that the election was called for Trump, Tony Todd, the actor, died, who was Candyman set in Chicago. But yeah, just this supposed killer of the 2 Israeli staffers, his name just happens to equal 79 and 83, like murder. And now the latest Fox News TV contributor to join the Trump administration's Jeanine Pirro. And if you're not familiar with Jeanine Pirro, she's often on The Five on Fox News. If you've ever seen that show, The Five. And pretty much her thing is just always just bashing Islam, talking about what a horrible religion it is, very pro-Israel. And now she's talking tough. She is the new, what's her new title? U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. She's about to turn 74 on June 2nd. As we know, Jewish equals 74. Killing is also 74. But yeah, all of this stuff is just such a joke. And I just think about how blind people got to be to continue to watch TV and not see through the mockery. Don't forget that Pete Hegseth, who's now supposedly the head of the military, he was also a Fox News contributor. And Fox News was once founded by a Republican strategist. It's pretty much the Republican news network. Nothing but Republican propaganda. And realize no matter what party you've bought into, you might like one's rhetoric a little bit more than the other. At the end of the day, they represent the same corporate fascist system, two wings of the same bird. But yeah, again, just with regards to Hegseth and now her, these two big Fox News contributors. Remember, Hegseth was picked on the Superior General's birthday, November 12th. That was the day he was nominated. The Superior General's the leader of the Jesuits, who are the modern day Templars. But yeah, just watching how this whole thing is unfolding, the obvious ritualism, and the very biased coverage that we have in our nation. And, the thing is, it's hard to say what's real in the media, but if you want to believe that 2 Israeli staffers were killed, you should also believe that 80-some people were killed on that same day, which was just one of the large number of people that was killed on any given day in the last week by Israel with their needless war that was contrived by the numbers, which I told you was coming the day Netanyahu stepped back into power, December 29, 2022. Anyhow, if you want to believe those stories, think about it this way. When 80-some people are killed and a bunch of them are children, and it's done by Israel, you as an American had a hand in that simply because you're in a nation where a lot of our tax money is sent over there that pays for their military and their military ventures. So U.S. taxpayer dollars are all over all of these killings. As an individual, it's hard to do anything about it. Again, governments work by force. If you don't pay your taxes, there's major punishments, there's fines, you can be imprisoned. So again, as an individual, it's hard to do anything about it. But the problem is we're in a nation with a collective group of people, and we have all these ways to connect. And that's something I want you guys to think about, too, is how they're breaking up communication. Channels like mine that have done nothing but speak truth to power. People's comments are deleted constantly. Channels deleted all the way. Just all this censorship. They're trying to break up communication. They don't want us to be able to communicate. But this is what humanity has to figure out how to do. Especially in this nation, we have to figure out how to work together and say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm tired of being taxed at the rate I am to have all this money sent to all these foreign nations. Don't forget how they sent, don't forget how $95 billion was approved for Ukraine and Israel on Hitler's birthday and Biden's last year in office. Remember, the Jesuits were created to counter the 95 Theses and recognized by the Roman Catholic Church on the day leaving 95 days left in the year. And then Biden signed that $95 billion into action on the 201st day of the war in Israel. Again, the Jesuits in 95 and 201, from the 95 Theses being pinned to the Jesuits being created, was 201 months later. Martin Luther penned the 95 Theses. Martin Luther King Jr. assumed the name Martin Luther after that Martin Luther and was killed on the 95th day of the year, and the nation's first gun control legislation came 201 days later. Again, the Jesuits are big with the 201 and 95 rituals. The Jesuit order equals 201, like State of Israel. But on the 201st day of the current war in Israel, that $95 billion approved, that is a lot of tax money from a nation that already has severe financial problems. Think about that. I mean, that's how bad we continue to get abused. We already have all this debt that makes it so that a huge sum of our tax money that we're forced to pay is paying all this interest to the ruling banker class over us. And then they continue to create more and more debt so that more and more of our taxes goes to just essentially paying for the profits of bankers. And now you have Donald Trump, somebody who's bought and paid for by the bankers, signing off on this one big, beautiful bill, which has the same gematria as Make America Great Again. But anyway, and again, the first $1 trillion military budget as well, which we talked about a few weeks back, how that was a perfect Jesuit ritual synced up with Hegseth. Anyway, just all this insanity is going on. and almost nobody's talking about anything that matters. People are caught up in all this crap. It is sad if two Israeli staffers were killed. That's messed up too. But again, where does that even matter in the scope of things when you're talking about hundreds of more people killed in a week by an ongoing genocide that's paid for with our tax dollars? Again, these things, your money didn't have anything to do with one whack job in Chicago going out to D.C. supposedly and shooting two people that night. There's not really anything you can do about that. Whack jobs will be whack jobs. But being taxed at the rate you are and your tax money being shipped off to all these problems supposedly overseas, as we know, all of these things have been perfect Jesuit rituals. We've been calling them out before they happen, and getting no credit for it. And yeah. It's just what's maddening, too. I mean, we've done amazing work. We called the day that the Russia-Ukraine war was going to start well in advance. The day Netanyahu came back into power, I told you why a war was going to start in Israel very close to Yale's 322nd birthday. It started 2 days before Yale turned 322. Again, we've been all over all this ritualism, but the reality is this ritualism creates massive problems in the world and massive bills and expenses for us. And all of us, no matter... even like the people who have to pay the least in taxes, they're really still paying an insane amount of money in taxes in terms of percentages for what they make. When you start factoring in not only income tax, some people have state and federal income tax, sales tax, property tax, taxes on just about every single thing you consume. You got a cable bill, there's taxes, a cell phone bill, there's taxes, etc., etc. Everyone is being distracted and manipulated and being told by the media to blame it on this group or hate this group or this group's the problem. The group that is consistently the problem is the people who govern over you and your media. They're the ones lying to you and stealing your wealth every single day. And those two things are the real problems in this world. Everything else is just contrived crap. And... what sucks about this social media game, how it's changed, is the mass censorship and how the people who play the games that the media wants, they're the ones that get the big views. They're the ones that are getting the big paydays, and they're getting paid to contribute to the problem and create the echo chamber that the media wants. Like all this viral stuff about black fatigue. It's like unbelievable, black fatigue. You guys can't see through the Carmelo Anthony psyop that happened on 4/2 on Rodney King's birthday as they launch a new race war. This Shiloh Hendricks crap. The black woman on 42nd Street. Yeah, it's just, people, it's just, it's like, how don't people know what the real problems are at this point in the game? How have they not figured out the way the game is played and the way we're manipulated? Yeah, I'm gonna run over just some of these notes here with these recent stories, and then I'm gonna play this. Ever since I clicked on his video, my feed is just jam-packed with his videos. And I realized this guy mass-produces videos. This guy makes about $20,000 a day on average in YouTube ad revenue, pushing out nothing but shit. And according to what I just watched on YouTube about how their algorithm now works, he gets to break all the rules, too. He's very pro-Israel. He's very anti-Muslim. It's just, it really is sickening to watch. But we're going to watch his video and the levels of ignorance. And, yeah, again, for anybody who listens to people like this, you really got to pull your head out of your ass. Anyone getting big views on YouTube is part of the problem at this point. Because they don't allow any truth tellers to have a say-so on this platform. All the good channels are shadow banned. A lot of people have quit and given up because of the mass deletions and censorship. It is shameful to witness. It's shameful to witness what's happened. The internet once upon a time seemed like the last glimmer of hope, but now it's the biggest part of the problem. Here's a story today. Israeli strike kills 9 of Gaza's doctors' children, hospital says. If you read this story, do you guys see it right away? An Israeli airstrike on Gaza hit the home of a doctor and killed 9 of her 10 children. The hospital where she worked in the city of Khan Yunis says Nasser Hospital said one of Dr. Allah al Najjar's children and her husband were injured but survived. Graham Groom, a British surgeon working in the hospital who operated on her surviving 11-year-old boy, told the BBC it was unbearably cruel that his mother, who spent years caring for children as a pediatrician, could lose almost all her own in a single missile strike. So 9 of 10 died, and the lone survivor was 11 years old. This is why, from all angles, this is the stuff that's in Al Jazeera today, right? And all the news media is reporting by the numbers. Is this a real story? 9 and 11 again? 9 and 11 again? I mean, they're always paying tribute to 9 and 11. You watch pro sports when a team can become 11 and 9 or 9 and 11, or the pitcher can become 9 and 11 or 11 and 9. This number pairing is just omnipresent. And remember, with regards to Israel, star of David equals 119. Of course, the 11th of September, the U.S. was instructed by Ehud Barak, the leader of Israel, what to do. We followed his exact instruction that he gave out on the BBC. Of course, Vatican equals 119. Vatican Hill has the 9/11 connection. But yeah, just encoded information every single day. Every single day. And meant to work up different groups and keep everybody fighting amongst themselves. Religious people fighting amongst religious people. The last 20-some years, the whole war with people, what is it? LGBTQ, however you say it. This whole thing. And just purposely creating things to piss people off. 20 years ago, the one debate I could have never imagined was people saying, yeah, I think guys who identify as women should be able to compete with women in sports. I never imagined that anybody would ever say that 20 years ago, but they've even instigated a group of people into thinking that way, which has caused another debate in society, which at the end of the day is also a distraction because it's really not that important compared to the things that matter, like how we're overtaxed and we're lied to every single day, and needless wars and people getting killed are stirred up constantly. Those are really the only things that matter. Everything else is way down in the pecking order in terms of what matters. But yeah, there's just this kind of stuff every day. 9 children killed, one survivor, 11. And then down here, you get another one. The health ministry said at least 74 people had been killed by the Israeli military over that 24-hour period. It's just like, come on, man. Killing equals 74, Jewish equals 74, occult 74, Masonic 74. You know the long 74 list. Again, 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents dead on 7/4. Always talking about 74 and killing. Number games, I opened up the book talking about 74 and killing and why they simulated the scandemic on the day, leaving 74 days left in the year. But yeah, just encoded information. If you can think for yourself, you should be able to look at this stuff each day and start to realize that there's something about numbers and numerology in the news. Just like I did. I saw it the day 9/11 happened ever so clearly. I said, wow, this is way too much 11 today. The 11th of the month, the building looks like an 11, New York, the 11th state, flight AA11, realizing not long after doing research that Papa Bush had given his speech 11 years to the day about a new world order before his son's the president and the World Trade Center comes down. If you guys don't know, Bin Laden wrote a book about his demands from the West. You should look into his 3 demands from the West because they all happened in the days after 9/11, including exactly what he wanted the price of a barrel of oil to be. It's all mockery. Don't forget the Bin Laden family was the only family who could fly in the U.S. after 9/11 either. It was also another thing that was a major mockery to us. And don't forget the World Trade Centers were on the 74th meridian either. It's the same numbers over and over that come together. But, yeah, it doesn't mean, all of this doesn't point to the small caps running things. No. There's a gang that creates this purposeful manipulation. And yeah, that gang does favor one religious group over the other but they use this game to keep the people of the world pitted against each other while they dominate. I did write some notes here about the ritual with Netanyahu saying the Israeli army will occupy all of Gaza. But yeah, the one point I just really wanted to make is how this got no coverage anywhere in U.S. news. And then it was later that same night that this story broke. That doesn't seem coincidental. That doesn't seem coincidental at all. Seems like they need this story so they can fill up the news headlines. And so nobody hears about what's going on over there right now. What that country largely paid for with U.S. taxpayer dollars is up to. And again, it's crazy how they can use history and say, well, that's because of this happened to them back in the 40s and you know, the 30s. Like, and everybody with a brain can see, well, aren't what they doing now just like what those other bad guys back then did? Aren't they the bad guys now? So is that okay for them to be the bad guys now because there were bad guys who did that to them back then? You know, last time I checked, almost everybody in this country grew up with the same phrase too. Two wrongs don't make a right. So in what world is this right? And then also, you know, the other thing you have going on is the people protesting what's been going on over there with what does look a lot like a genocide, you know, blowing up all the hospitals, headlines every day of children being killed. You know, when you protest that, you get labeled in a lot of these news sources as anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas. They like to, oh, you're pro-Hamas then. That's the power of words too, is just like creating these labels. And you see that almost everybody's like that. So many people turn into my channel and they're like, oh, you don't like Trump, so what? You wanted Kamala or Biden? I mean, that comment gets left all the time. It's just like, did you see any endorsement of the Democratic Party or Kamala or Biden around here? Are you kidding me? No, I'm talking about how sold out the government is. That's the mind control too. People think it has to be this or that. It can only be this or that. It's like no ability to think outside the box to see why you shouldn't be part of this or that, how both of those two things are totally sold out and don't represent your interests. I didn't finish my point either, just about the whole numbers thing too. If you can think for yourself, you should be able to think and observe that every day they really are doing numerology rituals in the news. And then your next level of thinking, it might be just like mine. I was brought up to think that things like astrology and numerology and all this stuff was so stupid and old world and dated and baseless and silly and, you know, it's things your sister might be into for a hobby. But then it becomes apparent, it's like, well, wait a minute. It's almost like we were programmed in that sense, too, to disregard these things so we wouldn't see what's happening right in front of our face. And look, all the time I have people come here and attack that, too. Numerology? Are you serious, bruh? Are you serious, bruh? Numerology? Numerology, bruh. I get comments like that all the time with like some emoji that I don't speak in emojis, but all you little kids do. It's like, what are you laughing at? What don't you see that I'm pointing out? Did I put this news story together today? Every day. How many times have I showed you the Trump 25 rituals? Trump keeps threatening 25% tariffs. Again, I've been telling you about how we had a banner year in 2023, taking advantage of the Apple stock, how Apple's connected to 23. Oh, what do you know? On the 23rd of May, what's one of the top stories that day? Trump threatens 25% tariffs on Apple. Trump equals 25, Apple equals 23. Why is it that when I show that, somebody will like, bruh, do you know how dumb you sound? Numerology's stupid, bruh. Like, these are people that can't say 2 words without writing bruh, and then they're telling me I'm stupid. That's the thing about these program people, too. They don't realize just how backwards everything is in their own existence, in their own mind. But yeah, anyway, this whole thing at Harvard, too, what's it about? It's really about that people are protesting against what Israel's doing, and then they're getting labeled as all these things. they support Hamas. And understand what Hamas is, right? Hamas is really your federal government too, and its CIA operations. Again, Hamas is funded by Iran. Who controls Iran? Again, go back and look it up. The CIA and British Petroleum overthrew Iran in the 50s on the Jesuit order's birthday, nonetheless, on August 15th. Was there ever a story about us giving Iran back? Did we ever, again, and for anybody who come and make the dumb argument like, well, it was a long time ago. Again, we overthrew the leadership of Iran because it was not pro-West. It was not pro-American. Have we had to go in there and overthrow anything else since? No, we have not. Because it serves our interests. And for anybody to be like, well, wait a minute, Iran's a threat, always threatening us. That serves our interest, because what is the point of this nation? It is a military empire. How does Trump justify spending $1 trillion on the military if there's not puppet states like Iran and Korea and the whole Middle East, which essentially, you know, we've all carved up after the world wars and turned into the chaotic zone that it is? The threats need to exist to justify the crazy military expenditures. All of this crap puts money in people's pockets, money that is taken from we, the taxpayers. We're the ones who are scared out of our rights and our tax dollars by their lies, and then their money gets siphoned up to the ruling class. And again, you look at all the major billionaires on the world stage, look at them. They're all the heads of these companies that get all the government contracts. Big tech's been building the digital surveillance state, building the databases to keep track of everyone. You know, this is one nation under total surveillance. Well, I shouldn't say total surveillance. Almost. Again, the Oracle guy who was up behind Trump, he spoke just before he was behind Trump back in September at Oracle's annual conference, saying that with where AI technology is right now, he sees in the near future a surveillance state where everything is under one watchful eye of the AI with cameras everywhere. And he said he sees a world where people are mandated to wear cameras at all times. And he said it'll keep everybody on their best behavior. And then, you know, right at the start of the administration, you have Trump, the Stargate project, all of this money put towards building this massive AI system with, you know, the Oracle guy and everybody else standing right behind him. So, you know what bothers me the most thinking about this is just a lot of people don't even care, because they don't mind being sellouts. They don't mind just going along with the flow and just going along with the herd and doing what the authority want from them. The average American thinks that is what being an American is, just going along with whatever the TV tells them, whatever the latest puppet politician who's on their side of the aisle tells them. Again, in the beginning, America wasn't supposed to be about political parties. There were founders who warned about how you should never become beholden to your party. Look how beholden the average American is to their political party now. And again, that's why the political machine knows that they got these people right where they want them. They don't have to follow through on anything. They can tell them one thing and do just the opposite when they get in there. And they know that they'll still get their vote in the next election from almost all of them. And then even if you go vote on the other side, what's the difference? They're going to do the same thing anyway. And I don't know how anyone doesn't know that at this point. Every Democrat should have learned that in a major way in 2008. Every Republican should be learning that right now. Well, the Republicans have, again, 2008 and 2024, 16 years apart, the exact same thing. One party has complete control of the Oval Office, both branches, both the House and the Senate, and the conservatives even have the Supreme Court right now. And there's not anything being done right now to, like, okay, historically, the Republican Party, they would say that party cares about gays, guns, and God. They used to say the 3 Gs for the Republican Party. That's been a thing for like the last 30 years. What is the Republican Party doing right now to embolden the Second Amendment, which has been incredibly undermined? They have everything right now. Why not go in there and say, you know what? The Second Amendment is not supposed to be infringed, and we have all these laws on the books that infringe everywhere. Again, you can barely own a gun. A gun is barely a thing that you can even use in America. Like I said, when I had to go out to, well, I didn't have to. I chose to go out to Oklahoma City. I had numerous people threatening me that they were going to kill me if I went out to Oklahoma City. And then literally when I got there, I had the police and the security at the Oklahoma bombing museum ready for me, and some guy who seemingly knew what hotel I was at and harassing me and threatening me all through town and dropping off documents about this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Anyway, the point is, I can be a gun owner in Washington State where I live, but I can't legally travel with my gun to another state. So there's a major infringement right there. Again, if you want to travel on the interstate with a gun, you have to have your gun separated in its own lockbox. The ammo has to be in a completely different lockbox. I thought as an American, because people, like founders understood, if you're going to use your First Amendment, you're going to create enemies in the world. You have a right to protect yourself. That's kind of how the First and Second Amendment go hand in hand. How's a gun helpful to me if I'm following the rules and I have the gun in a lockbox over here and the ammo over here? How's that helpful? And I'd have to check. I mean, I didn't bring my gun with me to. I wasn't gonna. Because what's the point? What's the point of traveling down the highway with a gun that's totally useless? And actually, I didn't look into the law. If as a Washington legal gun owner, if I can carry my gun around in Oklahoma, I don't know. Maybe I can. But again, the point is, all of this is bullshit. And for social media, these American-built companies to be adhering to what the World Health Organization. Again, if you have a social media account, you'll get these updates. Oh, that we're now going by the WHO guidelines for things that we're monitoring for speech. The ADL, they don't want these things online. We're going to be enforcing these talking points of the ADL, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like all this is bullshit. How about just respect the Constitution and respect free speech? It should be easy online that if you don't like what somebody's saying, to just go to another channel. To act like some radical online, being able to, like here, Nick Fuentes, right? He's the example. They'd say, well, see, this is why we want to censor free speech, because this guy's very dangerous with the rhetoric, and look at all these young, crazy people he has following him. People need to understand that Nick Fuentes is not organic. He is part of the machine. He's another little controlled puppet, and the machine builds him up so that they can make this case. Oh, see, that's why we got to censor. That's why we got to limit, because, man, he's very... How's this little ugly, pimply-faced kid who lives in his, upstairs in his mom's house, talking all this bullshit? Again, it's an illusion. No, it's... And it shouldn't matter either. Even if he was really building up an army of groypers or whatever they call them, which sounds like gropers, again, then so be it. More people should step up and explain why his position's wrong, There's just... But here we are. Here we are now in 2025, and you just see so many people that are now that they're just robots of what the media's been putting in their head. That they're all for the censorship. They want to see the Second Amendment done away with. All these people that are gathering. How come we're not doing more about the school shootings? What have any of these people done to look into these school shootings? Have they looked into anything at all? Have they looked into a single one? How come social media has been deleting people for questioning the mass shootings when they deserve to be questioned? Because not in a single one of them have you ever seen a body, have you ever seen evidence of anything. And remember, people like me are some of the only people questioning when they put out the video of the Tennessee private school Christian shooting with the 33s all over it. Remember, I got in a whole bunch of trouble. I got 2 strikes for my coverage of that for 2 separate videos. But again, they gave you body cam footage of 2 Jesuit-educated cops. Yeah, go back and look. Yes, they were. 2 Jesuit-educated cops running through an empty school with absolutely nobody in it. And then up in this large lobby. I think they said it was the library, just a person across the room just staring out the window, and they supposedly shoot him dead. And somehow that person was wearing different shoes in that video than the other surveillance video where they were, what'd they go from? They went from Vans to what? Converse? I forget. Vans to something. But the shoes of the suspect changed somehow in the different camera shots. Again, people are... It's like all these people just worked up about these news stories and they haven't taken 1 minute to look into any of them. And then they think it's so ridiculous to question, oh, what are you, some kind of conspiracy theorist? Like, no, I just don't take what the media says at face value. And why should anyone? Did you not see the same footage they put out that I saw of them running through an empty school with not a soul in the building when they want to tell you all these kids were killed in there? You would have thought that maybe, I mean, the footage was like them running through room to room to room to room. You should have seen in one room there was at least a person somewhere. Some bullet holes, some casings, some chaotic looking scenes, some blood here and there. Nothing. But they want to tell you all these kids were killed in there. No proof. Just another story. Another story. And then again, for all these people, you see all these rallies going on right now. All these rallies for all these different things because people have all these ideas worked up in their head from this ongoing propaganda-based news where there's no proof that any of this stuff is happening. And by the way, just the way things work too. When the Russia-Ukraine war started by the numbers, which again we called out before it happened, everybody I know at least on YouTube who has AdSense got an email. And it says if you question the war in Ukraine or you don't have a pro-Ukrainian standpoint, you risk having lost access to your AdSense account. So an immediate threat came out to everyone with a YouTube AdSense account. I think AdSense goes beyond YouTube too. I think there's other things you can use AdSense on. But everybody got that email threatening them that if they don't get behind the rhetoric or at least stay mum on it and don't say a word, you can be cut off financially. You guys, think about that in a future world where everything is digital. Everything is digital. And you're getting emails and your updates about that if you're not behind the latest propaganda or agenda in the nation, that you could instantly receive financial punishment. I think that's exactly how it will be. And I already think it's like that in a lot of regards right now, but it can get a lot worse. But yeah, everybody who has an AdSense account knows that's true, that we all got that email. And I didn't, I challenged all along and I didn't really get punished, but I was willing to take the risk. That's the thing. At the end of the day, most people are just complete sellouts. And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the money. And they will just toe the line. Okay, fine. If I'm not going to get paid, I'm not saying anything. So... yeah, mass mind control, cowardice. These are the main contributing factors to our society right now. Yeah, and just these people too. I mean, does anyone know who this woman is from Fox News? She's like the absolute human piece of shit. She's just such a trash person. And God, it just look at what day she got appointed. Look at what day she got appointed to be the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia on Israel's 77th birthday. On Israel's 77th birthday. Again, Judaism 77, Zionist 77. A week later, the two staffers supposedly killed at the 77 museum on the day that Netanyahu says they'll be occupying Gaza. Breaking the original promise of the nation of Israel to never do such things, a promise they've just continued to break for their entire existence. But yeah, all this stuff's such a joke. Such a joke. Yeah, I've always thought this lady is one of the most disgusting people on Fox News. If you're not familiar with her, she just trash human being. And again, we live in a nation where she's allowed to spew her kind of trash. And nobody really says anything. There's no ADL for Islam. Also, just this too, why they try to bait the race war, just the whole South African thing. Again, 121 days after the administration takes office, you got the South African president here. South Africa equals 121. 9 days earlier, on May 12th, 59 white South Africans had arrived in the U.S. I think you get the joke there with the 59. But yeah, of course, that was 47 days before Musk's birthday. And remember, racist equals 47, like fascism, like Sig Heil, like his ritual he did on January 20th, 47 years after the death of Werner von Braun, who again invented the character, the Elon, in the book Project Mars, when Mars has a 47-year orbital cycle. And again, these rituals are synced with Musk's 54th birthday, like Africa's divided into 54 nations. And who do you think divided Africa into 54 nations? Do you think it might have been that group who controls the world, who has their headquarters at the Church of the Jesus, Building 54? Of course it was. And the last French nation that was created was the Seychelles, and it was created in 76, like slave equals 76, like Acts 7:6. Yeah, I don't understand how anybody from either political party could be happy about this bill that's being passed, just how crazy the spending is. What happened to the Department of Government Efficiency? One big, beautiful act. One big, beautiful bill act. Just stupid shit, too. That same 134 encoding is Make America Great Again. But yeah, again, just crazy, insane spending. Just like Reagan, too. You know, Reagan, who said he wanted to make government so small he could drown it in a bathtub, and made it way bigger than any president before him. And that's the thing, too. Every new administration gets even crazier with the spending. Yeah, it's just insanity. And realize too, what this administration's doing, it's making it so all of us are going to pay higher taxes at the state level. So you're going to end up paying higher taxes at the federal level and higher taxes at the state level. And it's all part of Agenda 2030. Again, people can hardly keep up with the expenses of things today, the rise in prices versus the lack of rise in income, and then just more and more taxation. It's all part of one big master plan that was foretold by that Jesuit Klaus Schwab back in 2020 with the Great Reset. And then this too, this kind of stuff's just maddening. You know, the news release this week of how, you know, they're changing the shots protocol. And then, of course, they did that on Cannonball Day to remember the leader of the Jesuits getting shot. And, of course, yours truly wrote the book about how the Jesuits were behind the scandemic and everything they did was a little inside Jesuit joke. It continues on to this day. For anyone who didn't get it back then, how can you not get it now? How can you not get it when they're revising the shot protocols on the anniversary of Ignatius of Loyola getting shot? And it wasn't in my book because my book came out before the first shots were given out. But remember how the first shots were given out to Sandy Lindsay on the anniversary of Sandy Hook, a different type of shooting. And remember, Sandy Hook was 56 years old. The shooting in 2012, established in 1956. Again, coronavirus has that 56 gematria, like COVID vaccine, like Anthony Fauci, like all the 56s on the scandemic, including it beginning 56 years after Trump's Jesuit education began, when Society of Jesus equals 56. Again, Jesus said he came to divide families. The Society of Jesus divided families in a major way with the scandemic. But yeah, one day after the FDA, updated their protocols, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, on a Wednesday, a Mercury day, reminding that Trump declared Operation Warp Speed on Mercurialia, Ron Johnson released this report of all the hidden information that the government withheld about the health consequences of the jabs. I don't see anything viral on social media. And this is what I'm trying to get you guys to see. is how they have controlled everybody's conversation. It might very well be the most viral conversation right now on social media, but nobody will talk about the things that they've been told and seen all the punishments for. So instead, they talk about the things that are trending. Oh, let me get in on the black fatigue conversation. I think I have something to say about the black fatigue. Let me get in on the Israeli shooting story. Let me also beat up on some Muslims because I saw somebody else got a whole bunch of views doing that. Maybe I can also get 1 million views and make 5,000 as well doing the same thing. Nobody's having important conversations because social media has sanctioned them all. They made them punishable offenses. How many channels did I lose for calling out the coming consequences of the scandemic? We had it all foretold before anybody even got a shot. You know, instead of getting some kind of medal for being ahead of the curve, any kind of recognition, instead you're super buried in the algorithm, more shadow banned than you thought was ever possible, and down another 5, 6 channels en route to where I now am, minus 20 some channels. Again, all of this, it's maddening, but you just see, again, you guys, how easy money controls people and authority, right? The world has just never been more clear to see how it works. Control people's money, authorities give out the directions, and the society just follows right along. But yeah, also, it's not an accident that this report came out on the Mercury Day. Remember what RFK Jr. did in his first press conference? You guys remember this one? Back on April 16th? He said that environmental toxins were responsible for autism on the 106th day of the year, and that was 86 days after the administration took office when Mercury's 86. And keep in mind, Ron Johnson's report also did come on the first day of Gemini, and Gemini's ruled by Mercury. May 15th, Mercuralia, Operation Warp Speed. You know, right from the CDC's website, they tell you where the consequences can come. So, but yeah, these ongoing Mercury jokes with the jabs. Just more mockery, too. Just more mockery. In 2012, again, Google did a mass deletion of a lot of content on YouTube. Jenny McCarthy's organization and all the other related works. People telling their story about how that shot seemed to change their child overnight. And again, that same time period, I was working with autistic children in a group home for autistic children, and the parents who still had contact with their children, they all had the same story Jenny McCarthy did. Yet here we are in a nation where if you have that story, you're some kind of whackpot, you're some kind of misinformation person. And don't be surprised if it's years from now that something like this happens where they finally admit they're like, oh, you know what? Jenny McCarthy was actually right. A lot of people know Jenny McCarthy's right because they've lived the story. But yeah, it is just so annoying that real evidence, real proof of things, it's totally disregarded by so many, and they just go to whatever the TV told them, whatever the talking heads on the TV told them is the reality. You guys remember when I covered the first guy to get a pig organ transplant and how it was synced up with the Kelsey Grammer movie, The God Committee? You remember this? And then how that guy died shortly after? The movie came, if you haven't seen The God Committee, it's about a doctor who sits on a board of people who decide who gets the organ transplants and who doesn't, which is what hospitals actually do, because there's a massive shortage. And he wanted to figure out a way so that everybody can get transplants, so he started working on genetically modified pigs to make organs that are suitable for humans. That's what the movie's about. But anyway, 201 days after that movie came out was the first ever human to receive a transplant from a genetically modified pig. And again, you know, this was going on in the time of the scandemic, which was simulated with Event 201, the number of the Jesuits. Just like how every face of the scandemic was a Jesuit. Fauci, Trump, Biden, Cuomo, Newsom, etc., etc. Redfield, just all of them. Every last one of them, every last face of the scandemic was Jesuit educated. The 201 cabal. But anyway, I'd have to go back through all my notes. I remember there were more of these stories that ended up coming out after, and everybody died shortly after, and every last one of these stories seemed to be a numerical ritual. But anyway, my youngest nephew, he's graduating from high school. He just did some assignment. He's going into pre-med, so one of his graduation reports was to do something related to the field he's going in for his college, which I think is a cool idea. I didn't do anything like that in high school, but I liked hearing about that. So what my youngest nephew is really into right now is this. He's really into the genetically modified pig parts so that people can have organs. So he gave his speech and his research on that. He doesn't know anything about my work. His mom makes sure his children or her children don't know anything about what I'm up to. But this is what he's really into right now. I just found this out through my mom. She went to his thing. And I guess what my mom told him is she said, Leo, it's really interesting, but don't you think it would be better if just people learned to eat healthy and take care of their bodies so they didn't even need organ transplants for the most part? He didn't like that too much, but isn't it true? Isn't it true? It's like, see how that's never the focus? The focus is always on making these crazy new advancements. It's like the reason the majority of people need transplants is because they're absolutely trashing and destroying their bodies, especially their kidneys. Kidneys and livers just getting wasted from all this misinformation, mind control about what's an acceptable diet. Anyway, yeah, again, if we had a massive focus on nutrition and taking care of ourselves, we'd probably curb a lot of these problems. There probably wouldn't be a shortage of organs. And yeah, just, every day the news unfolds by the numbers. And one of the latest stories, that the San Diego plane crashed by the numbers on the 142nd day of the year. Anyway, I was long-winded. I talked too much in this stream, so I didn't even get to what I wanted to get to. But yeah, this guy's videos show up all the time for me. This Asmongold TV now, 1 million views. Look at this, you guys. You get it was $5,000 per million views about in 2018. It might be better than that now with inflation. Look at the way this guy gets paid to just churn out nothing but propaganda. Within the last day, he has over 2 million views. He has way over 2 million views. He's closer to 4 million views. That's at least $20,000. And he's not putting out anything meaningful, anything intelligent. He's putting out nothing but propaganda. He's talking about how Islam is this evil religion, just all this crap. And look at his channel, too. It just breaks every rule. There's no direction, right? I'm listening to a YouTube guy say that people who want to cover the news, it's going to be a real hard way to get views because they want you to stick to a niche and specialize in a topic. He's not doing thumbnails. He's just talking about this, that, and the other. When I watched this YouTube creator guy, he said he wanted people who are experts in their field. That's what they want. They want people with expertise who know what they're talking about. This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He plays video games. His expertise is video games. Why is this happening on this platform? Why can you get on and talk all kinds of shit about Muslims and get 1 million views, no repercussions, but you say one little thing about the tiny hats, and boom, there goes your whole channel. Think about this, you guys. This is the America we live in. And again, you take a look at that guy's nose. He looks like he comes from that Saturday camp. But anyway, it's just, yeah, if there's not some uprising by humanity, if there's not like a thirst for justice that happens within humanity, again, we are going to get pushed off the cliff as a society. And we're getting close. 2030 is the date they've been broadcasting for more than a decade. That Agenda 2030, wasn't that in 2015 when they updated Agenda 21 with 2030? Here, let me see. Obama spoke at Agenda 2030 on his 54th day of being 54 years old. He's born in... God, what year was Obama born? Was he born in 61? I think Obama was born in 61. Obama, let me see. Can't think what to search for that post. And who knows if that post even exists anymore. Obama Agenda 2030. Let me just pull this up for you. Look at what day he spoke there. He spoke, God. His 54th day, being 54 years old, was also the day in history the Jesuits are recognized by Rome. Unbelievable. Yeah. Remember, Jesuit order equals 54. Yeah, 2030. Big deadline year. And for anyone who needs help with the math, yeah, that would have been his 54th day of his age. And he was born in 61. Jesuit Order 54. August 4th, 2015. September 27, 2015. 54 days after the 54th birthday. And then the other thing that's funny too is, like Bin Laden, they supposedly killed Bin Laden on his 54th day of being 54 years old. Barack Hussein Obama, after nearly a decade of fear-mongering with Saddam and Osama. Muslim, or it's not Muslim, it's Islam. Islam has the 54. Terrorism has the 54. Remember what the original definition of terrorism is: government by intimidation. And think about what's been going on. Your government was scaring the shit out of you with the Cooties 19. Stay inside your house. Give up your way of life. Get a pokey doke. Remember when Mark Zuckerberg, he did the presentation for Meta by 2030 about how we can live in just digital reality. We can spend our money on digital clothes. We can have a digital persona. We can go to school and work in the digital world. It'll help with the Agenda 2030 climate change goals. Less people will help too. Anyway, I went too long, you guys. I was going to take calls and play a clip of this propagandist and the kind of shit that YouTube is allowing to be spread on their platform. But anyway, I got to hop off because I went too long. I was too long-winded. So all right, I will get back to live streaming. Again, I had my mom in town for a week. So I was spending more time with her and visiting with her. And the Thursday before last, I was going to live stream, but we had an internet outage that day. And then my mom showed up. And then anyway, I will get back to live streaming. But I got to admit, man, I feel the least optimistic I've ever felt in the time of doing this work. Because I just look around and I just see what the playing field is. Just all these shit channels that hog up all the views. And I know the game's rigged, but I see how shitty my views are. I see the same comments every day. Hey, Zach, can you cover this? And I already covered it. And I'm just like, God, I mean, people just can't figure out how to navigate YouTube. They only watch what pops up in their feed, which makes it real easy for YouTube to freeze out your viewership when they don't notify people. So anyway, I'll continue to grind on, but yeah, it is really lame just watching the shit views. And again, just looking at just stuff like this. Here's a guy who deserves no views. He doesn't have anything interesting to say. There's nothing interesting coming out of this channel, just nothing but shit. And I mean, 4 million views in a day. 4 million views in a day. My channel can't even get Well, a few months ago, I was able to get 300,000 views a month. They've got me down to 200,000 views a month now the last few months. So 200,000 views over the course of a year is what, 2.4 million? So I can get about, over the course of a year, grinding out videos that people should actually watch, I can get about half as much as he can get in one day. A guy who's nothing but a bullshit scumbag. Anyway. We'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you're not one of the mind-controlled ones. If you are, work on it.